You know, usually when we sit down to analyze a historical speech, we have a pretty standard toolkit.
Right,
We're
right.
looking for political strategy or maybe a moral framework or some kind of call to arms. We ask questions like, well, what was their tax
Or
policy?
how are they managing the borders, the usual nuts and bolts of governance?
Exactly. Earthly stuff. But
Yeah,
today we are throwing that toolkit completely out the window.
we really are.
Because we're looking at a text that doesn't just try to change society or, reform a government. It claims to completely redraw the map of the universe.
Redraw the map, rewrite the rules.
We are looking at a speech where time, space, and human identity are treated like mere suggestions.
Suggestion is a very polite way to put it, honestly. I mean, this text reads like a catalog of absolute cosmic authority. It's the kind of thing that forces you to stop, put down your coffee, and ask yourself, wait, how big is the canvas we're actually painting on here?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we're jumping straight into the Sermon of Clarification, or in the original Arabic, the Khutba-tul-Bian.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a heavy text.
It is. So this is a sermon attributed to Imam Ali, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, most of you listening probably know Ali as a major historical figure, right? Like caliph, a warrior, a jurist.
The standard historical profile.
Right. But if you think you know Ali based strictly on those standard history books, this text presents something else entirely.
It really does. In the Khutba-tul-Bian, Imam Ali isn't presented merely as a successor to the Prophet or a ruler in any traditional terrestrial sense. He is presented as a metaphysical force, something woven into the very operating system of creation itself.
So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack this dense, frankly mind-bending text. We're going to look at the specific claims made here, where the Imam identifies himself as the holder of the keys to the unseen.
Which is a massive claim.
And the pivot point of all prophetic history, and the master of the elements. And just a quick heads up for you listening, we are going to be using the text itself as our sole roadmap today.
Right, we aren't debating its historical authenticity or provenance today.
Exactly. We are stepping completely inside the world this specific text creates to distill its takeaways.
And honestly, we should probably start with a disclaimer that the text itself provides right at the front door. It's almost like a high-voltage warning sign.
It really is. The sermon opens with Imam Ali saying, "You will find divine secrets about us in my Sermon of Bian, which no one would be able to comprehend except the truly guided scholars."
So we definitely have our work cut out for us. The text is signaling immediately that this isn't for the casual passerby. It requires a completely different kind of listening.
It's telling you that if you read this purely literally, you might miss the point entirely, or worse, misunderstand it completely.
Which happens a lot with esoteric texts.
Well, let's try our best to be those guided scholars for the next 15 minutes or so. Let's jump straight into the first major dimension of this text, which is the concept of knowledge. The very opening claim sets the stakes incredibly high.
It begins with the Imam asserting, "I am the one who has the keys to unseen, and after the messenger of Allah, no one knows about them except myself."
Keys to the unseen. In Arabic, that's kaib, right?
Yes, kaib. And that is a very loaded term in Islamic theology. Usually the kaib, the unseen, the future, the hidden reality, that is the exclusive domain of the divine.
God knows the unseen.
Right, God knows the unseen, humans generally do not. So by claiming he holds these specific keys, he is asserting a proximity to the divine that is almost terrifyingly close.
He backs this up by referencing a famous saying of the Prophet, which he actually quotes in the text, "I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gateway." But in this sermon, he seems to take that metaphor of the gateway and turn it into a literal inventory of omniscience.
He really does. He doesn't just say, "I know a lot," or "I'm very wise." He says, "I possess knowledge about everything."
He lists having the 1,000 books of divine prophets.
He claims to speak all languages of the world.
And it's the specificity that really gets me here. He doesn't just deal in broad strokes. He says he knows the count of the mountains, the weight of the ants, and the specific instant and place of every creation.
The weight of the ants. That detail is so important because it signals that this isn't just big picture strategy. It's incredibly granular. He calls himself the treasurer of divine knowledge.
Meaning nothing escapes him.
Exactly. The implication is that nothing in the universe, from the heaviest mountain range to the smallest insect crawling in the dirt, is outside his audit. He explicitly says he knows the fears which pass through the minds and what is hidden in the hearts.
So if you're a believer listening to the sermon, you realize pretty quickly, I have zero privacy.
None. It establishes a relationship of total transparency. You cannot hide your internal state from this figure. He isn't just a ruler of your land, he's a ruler of your consciousness.
Okay, so we have this picture of a figure who sees everything. But here is where the text pivots from omniscience to something that, frankly, challenges our basic understanding of physics and history.
This is where it gets really mind-bending.
The text claims he hasn't just seen everything, he's been everywhere, specifically throughout history long before his physical birth.
Right, this is the section that really challenges our linear perception of time. We're talking about what looks like prophetic intervention, or even time travel.
He starts talking about figures who lived thousands of years before he was born. He says, I am the companion of first Adam, and I am the helper of first Nu, or Noah.
Note that phrasing, first Adam and first Noah. It hints at cyclical time or multiple world, a concept you find in some esoteric traditions. But let's just focus on the presence. He isn't saying, I read about Noah's flood in a scroll.
Right.
He's saying, I was the one who boarded Noah onto the rescue boat.
That is a massive claim. He's placing himself inside the narrative of the Great Flood, physically or spiritually assisting the prophet. And he doesn't stop there at all. He moves to Abraham, or Ibrahim. The text claims he was the reliever who saved Abraham from the fire of Nimrod.
Right, so the Quran tells the story of Abraham being thrown into a massive fire by the tyrant Nimrod, and the fire becoming cool and safe for him. Here, Imam Ali says, I am the one who consoled Ibrahim from the ravaging flames. He is identifying himself as the actual agent of that miracle.
It's like he's walking through the greatest hits of prophetic history, but he's not a spectator in the crowd, he's the active ingredient.
Look at the section on Moses. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
He describes himself as the divine light from which Moses benefited. He even claims to be the master and mentor of Moses in Khizar.
That's a huge hierarchy flip, isn't it? Because Moses is an arch-prophet, a towering figure, and
Right.
Khizar is this mystical teacher figure in the Quran who had knowledge that even Moses didn't.
Yes.
And now Ali is saying, I was their mentor.
He implies he was the source of their insight. He even says, I am the wonder of Moses, referring to the miracles, and claims to hold the cane or staff of Moses. But the one that usually stops people in their tracks, and I think it's one of the most vivid images in the whole text, is about Jesus.
The cradle moment.
Exactly. He says, I am the one who conversed from the cradle of Jesus.
Just for some context for you listening, the Quran describes Jesus speaking as an infant to defend his mother Mary against accusations. It's a major, major miracle. And here, Imam Ali is identifying himself as the force, or perhaps the voice, behind that miracle.
He also mentions comforting Job, or Ayub, during his immense suffering, and showing Jonah, or Eunice, the way out of the fish. He even says he was the one who pulled Joseph out of the well.
So I have to ask the obvious question here. Is the text claiming he is literally a time traveler? Did he hop in a machine to go back to ancient Egypt? Or is this purely metaphorical?
Well, time travel is the sci-fi interpretation, but the text actually points to something much more theological. It points to the concept of Nur, or divine light. Later in the text, he says, I was the first, being created from the divine Nur.
So he's claiming that his spiritual reality predates his physical body entirely.
Precisely. The claim is that before he was Ali ibn Abu Talib, the man walking around 7th century Arabia, he existed as a primordial light. And that light was the constant thread running through the tapestry of all revelation. He is claiming that whenever a prophet needed help, that light was there.
That reframes the whole helper idea. He's not a sidekick, he's the cosmic support system.
Correct. He is the structural support that allowed those prophets to succeed in their missions.
Now, speaking of structural support, he uses some incredibly heavy titles to describe himself in this sermon. Some of these are almost cryptic, like codes. I want to throw a few of these at you, and you can help us decode what they actually imply for the listener.
Let's do it.
First one, I am Lohe Mahfuz.
Lohe Mahfuz translates to the preserved tablet. Think of this as the master record of the universe. In Islamic theology, it's the metaphysical surface where everything that has happened, is happening, or will happen is permanently written. It's the unchangeable script of reality.
So by saying I am Lohe Mahfuz, he's saying I am the record.
He's saying he is the embodiment of God's decree. He isn't just reading the book of destiny, he is the book. If you want to know what is written, you have to look at him. He is the living repository of fate.
Okay, next one. O Allah, your conduct is the Sirat-e-Mustaqim.
This is a direct reference to the opening chapter of the Quran, the most recited verse in Islam. Guide us to the straight path, the Sirat-e-Mustaqim. The text is defining that abstract path as a person. It's saying that the straight path isn't a set of rules or a philosophy or a textbook. It's a biography, his actions, his conduct, That is the path.
That's a massive shift from abstract to concrete. You don't follow a rule, you follow a person. He also mentions holding Suleiman's ring and being Zulkarnain.
Solomon's ring signifies absolute dominion over different species, specifically jinn and human beings. And Zulkarnain is a Quranic figure, a mighty ruler empowered by God to build a great barrier against evil. Ali is claiming that exact authority. He explicitly says in the text, I have control over all jinn and human beings.
Then there's this one, which sounds pretty ominous. I am the Dabatul-Ars. That translates to the beast of the earth.
It does. And usually when we hear beast in an eschatological or end-of-times context, we think of a monster, something like Godzilla or a dragon. But here the text completely reframes it. The commentary notes that this figure is the one who distinguishes belief from disbelief.
So it's not a monster at all, it's a filter.
Exactly. He marks the believer and the non-believer. He is the ultimate sorting mechanism for humanity.
It seems like every title he takes is about ultimate authority. And that authority extends to the physical world, too. I was reading the section on nature, and he sounds like a force of nature himself.
The master of the elements section.
Yeah. He says, I laid down the earth and raised up the skies. He talks about forming clouds, bringing rain, growing leaves on trees, and making springs gush out of the earth.
He even says, I am the one who gave golden rays to the sun and enabled it to rise.
Okay, let's pause right here. Because to a listener, especially one familiar with strict monotheism, this sounds like he's claiming to be God. I raised the skies. I gave the sun its light. How does the text reconcile this? Is he claiming divinity?
That is the critical theological question here. If you miss the nuance, you misunderstand the whole text. He repeatedly clarifies the source of this power. He says, I am the Amr of Allah and the Spirit of Allah.
Amr meaning command.
Yes. He quotes the Quranic verse about the Spirit acting by the command of the Lord. He's not claiming to be an independent deity. He's claiming to be the instrument of the divine will. Think of it like a hand.
A hand.
If I write a letter, my hand is doing the physical writing. It holds the pen, it forms the letters. But I am the one willing it. If you look at the hand, it's doing the work. But the will belongs entirely to the mind. Imam Ali is describing himself as the hand of Allah. When he says he causes the rain to fall, he means he is the mechanism through which God's will is executed in the physical world. He says very clearly, I am the trustee who protects divine commands.
So he's the interface.
Exactly. The interface between the creator and the creation. Without the interface, the command doesn't execute.
That interface role seems to peak when he talks about the end of the world. We talked about the beast of the earth, but his role in the Judgment Day scenario is even more intense.
It is the absolute climax of the sermon. The text paints a picture of the Day of Judgment where Imam Ali is the central operator.
He claims he will blow the sur, the whistle or horn that signals the end of everything.
I am the holder of that whistle which will destroy everything. And then he says he will subsequently bring back to life all people. He is claiming the role of the resurrector. He says he will resurrect everyone, from the first human to the last ones.
And once everyone is back, he's the judge. He calls himself the distinguisher between the just and unjust.
He says, I will send people towards heaven and hellfire. The text is very explicit. I separate truth from falsehood. He even mentions the bridge, or sirat, that souls must cross over hellfire. He says his judgment is, in fact, the verdict of thy Lord.
There's a line that gave me chills reading it. I am the one from whom nothing is concealed that may be on the face of the earth or residing in the gardens of heaven. It's that total transparency again. You can't hide from this judge.
And he adds a fascinating duality to that. He says, I am very kind, but my wrath is certainly the wrath of Allah. It's absolute mercy and absolute justice contained in one single figure.
This brings us to a really interesting point about what faith actually means in the context of this text. It seems like he's redefining religious practice entirely. Usually we think of religion as a set of things you do. You pray, you fast, you give charity.
Orthopraxy, correct action.
Right, but here he takes those core pillars, prayer or salat, charity or zakat, pilgrimage or hajj, and struggle, jihad, and he personalizes them.
He says, I am the salat, zakat, hajj, and jihad of a true believer.
That is a profoundly mystical claim. What does it actually mean to be the prayer?
He's arguing that the physical rituals, the physical movements of prayer, the act of handing over money, those are just the outer shell, the body. But the soul of those acts, the thing that actually makes them valid, is the recognition of his authority.
So without recognizing him, the prayer is essentially a corpse.
Yes. The text says, without accepting my divine authority, the deeds of worshipers are worthless. It's a binary system. You either recognize the face of Allah, which he claims to be, or your worship simply doesn't reach its destination.
You mentioned face of Allah. That phrase pops up a few times in the sermon. I am the Wajah of Allah.
He references the Quranic verse, everything will be destroyed except the Wajah of Allah. By identifying as the face, he's asserting his eternal nature. He says, I have no sign of decay and cannot be eradicated.
It helps to visualize what a face actually does. A face is how you recognize someone. It's the point of connection.
Precisely. You cannot see God in his essence. He is beyond form, beyond space. So the text argues, God provides a face, a guide, a proof, so that humanity can face him. Ali is claiming to be that eternal point of connection. When the physical universe dissolves, that connection point remains.
It's a lot to take in. We started with a sermon, and we've ended up with a figure who is the companion of all prophets, the controller of natural forces like the sun and rain, the ultimate judge of every soul, and the living face of God.
It completely reframes the concept of imamat in this theological framework. We often think of an imam as a leader of a community, someone who guides people in law and ethics, kind of like a Supreme Court justice or a king.
But the Khutba-tul-Bian says, no, that's just the surface.
Right. Here, the imam is a structural necessity for the universe to exist. He is the anchor. He says, I anchored the mountains. Without this figure, the text implies the connection between the divine and the physical would just snap.
It moves the conversation completely from political leadership to cosmic necessity. It's not about who gets to sit on the throne in the capital. It's about who actually holds the universe together.
Exactly. And that distinction changes everything about how a believer would interact with their faith. It becomes less about following a checklist of rules and much more about adhering to a cosmic loyalty.
And that leads to a really provocative question for you listening. The text warns us early on that these are secrets meant only for the truly guided. Imam Ali claims to be the one who rotates the duties of angels and holds the keys to the unseen.
And that raises the fundamental question, what is the actual nature of religious knowledge?
Right. Is knowledge just something you learn in a book? Is it data you accumulate over years of study? Or, as this text highly suggests, is true knowledge something that is only unlocked by recognizing a specific authority?
If the keys to the unseen are held by one person, then the only way to see what's behind that door is to know the key holder.
It suggests that you can't bypass the guide to get to the destination, which is a thought that lingers long after you've finished reading the text. Does true understanding come from what we read or who we recognize?
It certainly challenges the idea that truth is fully democratic or accessible to just anyone with a library card. It suggests truth is deeply hierarchical and relational.
We'll leave you with that to mull over. Thanks for diving deep with us into the Khutba-tul-Bian today.
Thank you. It was a great discussion.
Catch you on the next deep dive.